Hello YouTube world, has it been quite a while since you've seen me, Julesy? Baby, it's really hard to come into YouTube videos as of late. I be in a house by myself. Lately, this past week, I've been doing a lot of time because I run a book club. Listening to audiobooks. I just finished Queenie and I'm starting The Vanishing Half, which are books we are reading in my book club. Hello, how are you doing? I hope you're doing well. Can you believe for a lot of us it has been like 8, 9, 10, just a lot of months in the house, and here we are. Everything feels so chaotic, but I'm here to have an interesting conversation with you, a delightful conversation, a thoughtful conversation. I've been fascinated by Instagram filters, and I find in the history of filters that I am familiar with, right? The Snapchat filters, the filters that YouTubers and the beauty gurus have used on their videos. When we talk about this beauty as a standard, beauty as a point of power and value, which is a fail, right? Not the way to go. But when we talk about the way that beauty and social media and the apps and the AI have evolved within the short span of maybe 5 years, I find Instagram filters to be the most pernicious. So let's interrogate. Am I justified in finding Instagram filters to be, especially as I said, pernicious, harmful? Am I inclined to say dangerous? Is that fair? I've been on YouTube now for about 10 years. And I was going to say about 10 years, but it has been 10 years. And if it had not been a pandemic and if we've been in better spirits, maybe I'd have been inclined to do something special for when my 10th year anniversary passed in October of this year, just last month. It has been interesting to see the evolution of just even how we do our makeup and how I've been influenced by the influencers who surround me, who I have proximity to, who I deeply admire and respect. And I'm not a beauty guru at all. I'm just a bitch that know how to do something with her face. Okay, hey. And so one of the outputs of me attending YouTube Black is I always end up following a suite of the Black, particularly women and queer influencers who come to the event. And one thing that has struck me is there seems to have been a recent update in the Instagram filters, or maybe prior to late last year, I wasn't really following as many of the Black younger influencers as I am now. So I hadn't really noticed that Instagram filters were a thing. So I might be wrong here, but it feels like there's been an uptick recently, both in the number and quality of these Instagram filters. And when I say quality, the quality of them is also why I think they are so pernicious. Snapchat filters were invented or released in 2015. Snapchat did start coming out with what I would firmly say were filters that did Europeanize your facial features. I don't know that Instagram filters so much flatly rely on a European standard of beauty, because Instagram filters would slim your lips, make your nose more narrow and angular, it changes the structure of your face. And it was interesting at that point to watch people rely on the Snapchat filters, because in particular, Snapchat filters would lower the quality of your image or video that you were recording. And at that point, I saw Black women, both as influencers and everyday Black women that I know, love, admire, and respect, become reliant on these filters. That was a little bit easier to identify because you could tell the way it would colorize your photo or change the quality of your image, that it was a filter. You could kind of, not that I was actively calling it out, but it was easier to look at it and say that's what that is, and you need to be careful with that. Because when you become so reliant on using a filter to showcase yourself to the world, that the only time you feel comfortable showing yourself, which is attached to your vulnerability, because I'm a Brene Brown stan. Well, I stand because I don't stand nobody, but I'm a fan, okay? How you allow yourself to be seen, the image that you become okay with when it relies on a filter, baby, that is problematic. It's not good. And I do think some of the same people that were very reliant on Snapchat filters and that they would always use them to take pictures of themselves, to record video, are also now reliant on the Instagram filters. But I feel like there's a wider breadth of people who I had never really seen. They were not the people that they would go to Snapchat, record a video, download it, post it to Instagram. They were not those folks. But now I almost never see Instagram stories without a filter on it, and not just a filter that colorizes, because I get the thing on social media is to like have a tone scheme for your feed, right, where everything has the same tonal colors in it. And so I'm not talking about filters that just change the tone of your image or the saturation of your image, but filters that change the shape of your face. I'm noticing more and more people that are not only consistently posting to their Instagram stories with these filters, but they're also posting selfies and pictures of themselves in feed on other platforms, on TikTok, and they have these filters on them. They are reliant on these filters. Now, particular to the Instagram filters, I feel like the changes are so much smaller, and that makes them so much easier to become reliant on them, because you still very, very, very much so do look like yourself, but yourself in a way that's just like, this is something that aesthetically is an image we have been informed is a good or better image of ourselves. And so it's much easier to become reliant on it, because it's not like you literally, some of these filters, and I'm just gonna go ahead, let me go ahead and open my Instagram. So I save all these filters every time I see an influencer that I follow use them. So let's screen record and go to Instagram. Okay, so the last one I saved was BB doll. Ooh, what is this? Oh, is it changing the shape of my lips? Oh, yeah, it's changing the plumpness of my lips. Okay, so let's turn it down because we already have them. So this filter in particular, this is a little much, right? It's putting the extra, I already do this makeup thing where you put like a little blush on the ridge of your nose, but it's doing that. It's really contouring my nose, and for a lot of folks, it is making their lips a lot plumper. All right, so the next one is skin. Yeah, let's tap to change it. What am I changing when I tap? Is it freckle? Oh, I'm like, what the hell? The nose is a favorite. This isn't really doing a whole lot to my lips. You really have to reset like how you see yourself after using these filters. This one is really making my skin look poreless, like really smoothing you out and narrowing the nose. It's really hard to tell exactly what these filters are doing to your face, because you're just like, okay, this looks fascinating. The Amrezy, man, I'm gonna take off the eye color filter because they always do kind of brighten your eyes though. So, all right, this one is cute lettering, which I see all the time. But these are not like huge disparities in like the way in which you imagine yourself, the way in which you see yourself. Like when I work out, I imagine myself, I see myself, I feel myself as if like I'm that bitch and I'm doing that shit, and then I've recorded it and I've been like, ooh girl, the posture is embarrassing. Ooh. I think that really plays on the ways in which our minds will see ourselves and then what we present on camera without the filters, when you're not really posturing to ensure that you look a certain way, what you truly look like. All right, Cali Glam again. And I see people posting selfies like this. Cute baby face, another one that changes. Let's take the eye color change off. And the baby face. The first time I used this filter, I got so many compliments. Oh, like you look so good. And I'm like, it's the filter. Because I don't naturally look like this, and I don't see myself as an ugly person. I don't believe that I'm like deeply insecure about my facial features. But if I was to constantly be using these filters, it would really jar me when I see my real face. I understand, like maybe sometimes you want to reach for a filter because you are posting an IG story for whatever reason first thing in the morning, and you feel like your face is a little crusty and you just don't want that image, because when you put things on the internet, they live forever, and maybe you don't want that particular image of yourself to live on the internet forever. But like people will do full, and I'm talking like beauty influencers who know how to do their makeup, who are doing full glam faces, will do their face and then put a filter on top of it. That is harmful to the ways in which not only that we view ourselves, but it sets an unreliable beauty standard, an unreachable beauty standard for everyone. All those filters smooth out your skin. And so now people do have this idea that when you do your makeup, or even when you commit to a skincare routine, that at some point your skin should be so blurred and so poreless that that is the standard. That is the goal of perfection that we are trying to attain. And it's like, no, especially because like just the natural, I'm grateful that I'm still alive. I am grateful that I'm here. Why am I now adding this standard that I should not have any texture in my skin? One, it's a natural part of aging, but it's also just a natural part of your skin. And I can't imagine in a year of pandemic when so many people are losing and without access, and the ways in which the roughness, the chaos of this year will manifest within our bodies, that we can come to resent our strength and our ability to survive in these times because our skin breaks out. I generally do have naturally clear skin, and the pervasiveness of seeing these images with filters on them and thinking, oh, okay, maybe I should try to achieve to get rid of the image of pores that you can see on my face. I don't break out, but you will at certain times see like the blood flow in my skin a little bit better in certain areas. And I'm like, why am I trying to cover this up? Like, this is a natural function of my body working the way it should be. Like, how does this tap into like ableism, right? When we start setting these beauty standards based on filters that are not realistic to how we very much so look in real and take day-to-day life, when we are constantly absorbing these kind of images, how do we then go out into the world and see other people? There's a matrix of domination. You know, we be reading books in the book club. So we read a book that discussed the matrix of domination and the hierarchy of power and how we constantly replicate these. And this is something that helps to replicate that. I keep thinking of Gia Tolentino, who is a writer, an author, who I very much so quoted previously. So she released an article in December 2019 for New Yorker magazine about the Instagram face. It is called The Age of the Instagram Face: How Social Media, Facetune, and Plastic Surgery Created a Single Cyborgian look. So how we all kind of now look like cyborgs. Khloe Kardashian definitely has had some work done to look very much so very similar aesthetic to the way that these Instagram filters are. And so I know that kind of counters my argument of how they skew towards a European standard of beauty, because a lot of people see the way that Khloe Kardashian has evolved and particularly think that she is evoking the imagery of a light-skinned black woman, but it's a light-skinned black woman. I think there's more to extrapolate there. I think there's whole nother conversation that we can really pull out of what does that mean when the standard of desirability becomes mixed race or light skin factions of an oppressed people. Fascinating things happening here, right? But that Gia Tolentino article, Gia dug in to the uptick of plastic surgery and how people are going in to these offices and saying that I want to look how I look when I use this filter. It is deeply pervasive because it is very jarring when you come to rely on these images of yourself and then you look in the mirror and that is not who you are. This does tap into the ways in which we treat other people. And I had an interview with Kiese Laymon, who wrote Heavy. All audiobooks are not created equal, let me tell you, but the books that I have been listening to, like the way Kiese reads his own book, it's like the gold standard. But Kiese made a point in the author chat we had with him where he was talking about the way he views himself, because Heavy does tap into the idea of body dysmorphia from the not often discussed perspective of a young Southern black boy, right?
And we also need to talk about attraction. I always think it's interesting when people who are very like big often talk about how much they love themselves, but the people that they actually love and like want to find pleasure, explore pleasure with, are often like really small, quote unquote normal looking people. I don't know. I just think we got to be honest about like what we find pleasure in, the types of people we find pleasure in, and really like what I've been doing in my work recently is like, this is too much information, but I think sometimes we need to think about our dreams and what our fantasies look like. And when we're fantasizing, like are we in our fantasy? And or like, often when I think about my fantasies, I'm still like that nigga who everybody said was fine at like 29 years old. Uh-huh. And like that's a form of lying to myself too. Do you know what I mean? And if we really want to push it, like I've been thinking about how in my fantasies often, like I neglect to age the women in my fantasy, but I can tell you in my fantasies, the women that I'm like, exploring shit with, they're not over 50. That's fucked up. I'm closer to 50 than 30, my nigga. Like, so I don't know. I just think we have to like be honest and work through not just what we do, but also what we fantasize about. And I think that's tied to that question.
Who are the people that you see yourself in proximity to? What do they look like? Because that does impact the way in which when you walk out into the world, how do you value other people? How short does your temper become? How long is your patience with people who do not fit into a standard of beauty or image that has been upheld by the pervasiveness of these filters that we both are reliant on and absorbing through our consumption of social media? There are so many young Black girls on TikTok talking about the ways in which the men, both in their lives and on social media, denigrate them. There are queer folk, non-binary people who are talking about the casual trauma that comes into their lives, particularly when they do not feed into very binary standards of what is acceptable. So when that standard begins to stretch towards a filter, what kind of harm are we replicating in our own communities? If we're living in a world where we desire to exist within more care and compassion of each other, I do think we have to be careful about the ways that we rely, especially as influencers who influence a wide breadth of people. There's already so many standards, and they're a lot more complicated to talk about, that influencers get a little bit of money, and they're going to the doctor to get altered, right? There's been a flush of people that do get the boob jobs and the BBLs. 360 tummy tucks are like becoming a thing that like, I see so many Black women being like, yeah, that's what I want, because we have set a standard that said that is the image of desirability that we should all be reaching for. The real gag is the money that you need to upkeep these procedures, that it is not just some things that you go and get done once and you don't ever go back for it, right? Like over time, you will have to go back in and go back under to upkeep the ways in which these surgeries that we are promoting them more. And I do think we have to interrogate the way in which we have, across social media, promoted just unrealistic standards of beauty. And I'm concerned that if we go from the BBLs and the things that you can remove from your body or undo, and we go to now this is the face that I want to have, that this is the only type of face that I'm okay with seeing myself present as, what sort of harm that is going to have to the community. But yeah, that article really, and I've name checked it so many times, and now being able to do a video, and it's so great because Gia has a book out. It's on Audible as well. It is called Trick Mirror: Reflections on Self-Delusion, which are a collection of essays that further expand on the internet culture. So many. I've been listening to so many audiobooks this year. I pay for my Audible account, baby. I actively use it. I think I name checked about 3 already. Queenie, Heavy, The Vanishing Half. Baby, I'm still not over how good Such a Fun Age is. If you are new to Audible, definitely use my Audible code, you could text Julesy to 500 or audible.com/Julesy to get your first month free on the platform. They have a bunch of new features. They have Audible originals, so much happening. And I told you, I done shared it with my mama. I done shared it with my friends. I'm out here you can join the book club and see how much we talk about the greatness of the audio books. Check out some of these books, be inspired with me so we can continue these conversations. I am going to continue to not use these Instagram filters because I don't ever want to love myself less. I don't ever want to love my big ass nose with its pores. I don't want to be mad at the crinkles in my lips because, baby, that's natural when they plump and fatty. I want to enjoy me in its natural state because I don't want to have to change me for a standard that's just not realistic, okay? And I want to love the community that surrounds me and the skin they're in and not set some untenable, unreachable beauty standard on them. So I'm going to steer clear of the filters. I'm not saying that you cannot use them, but just be a little bit more thoughtful and a little less reliant on how and when you use these filters. Because baby, I didn't even touch on the way folks be putting these filters on their kids. And what does it mean for a child who is constantly informed that this is the image of themselves that they should see, and the image that they see in the mirror needs to be altered. It needs to be corrected. What are we telling them? It's something to sip on, okay? So holla at my Audible link, then come join the book club because we be listening to books over there, all right? So you can discuss these books with me.